everyone. We're going to get started. Welcome. The board has already met in executive session, so we did a salute to the flag in there. So at this point, we're going to have a roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Thank you. We're up to the statement of public notice. I'll just draw your attention to it. It's in your agenda. It says that there are 2 times where we take public input. The first one is fairly early on in the meeting, and that's for public comment on agenda items, for anything that's on the agenda. And then later in the meeting, there's public comment on non-agenda items, which is when you just comment on anything or ask questions. The meeting is being recorded, and we ask that if you can hold your comments to 5 minutes or so, please, that would be helpful. And if you have more than that to say, you're free to email us and tell us the rest of what you want to say. We're up to our student representative, Maddie.
Hello. This week, or in the past few weeks, the student government has been executive Mr. Ridge. The official date was April 25th. And we had our first meeting with candidates, and we had like 11, 12 guys show up, so we're doing really high participation this year. It's going to be really fun. Both girls and boys basketball teams won like big in burners this past week, and they are coming to close their season. The bridge competitive cheerleading is at Nationals in Orlando right now, competing at a very high level. And the student government will be going on a last block schedule this Thursday, and then we'll have a full sort of report on what we found about block studies from the student perspective. So that's it.
Does anyone have any questions? What schools left to go to?
Well, we're using 107 goals on 14.
Thank you. You're free to stay where you go. Okay, we're up to the superintendent's report. There's 2 items, and someone can make a motion. Mrs. Gray and Mrs. Korn.
So we have the standard HIV report, and then a couple of other items. One is a new extracurricular club, which is a club at Ridge High School with the advisors of Mr. Steve Isaacs and Mr. Justin Satter, designed to give the kids an opportunity to have a chance to participate in online gaming as a club. The second item is a research project that one of our staff members is involved in, and the goal of the study is to analyze data on student perceptions of the utility and efficacy of a thematic unit that embeds the bullfighting culture of Spain. So since the teacher is interested in getting input from the students, it can only happen with board approval, and the teacher would have to get permission slips signed by the student's parents in order for them to participate in her study.
Does anyone have any questions about those items? Okay, can we have a roll call, please? Do you have a question? Probably before or after school. I'm not sure. Or maybe they're meeting in one of them, so that's computers. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so roll call, please.
Mr. Byrne?
Hold on, yes, no.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. We're up to public comment on agenda items. If you have a comment on something on the agenda and you come up, could you please tell us your name and address? And then if you want to sign in on the clipboard after you speak, that's fine. But just make sure you tell us your name and address when you come up. Thank you. Nobody for public comment on agenda items? Okay, I'll close public comment. We're up to committee reports. The Personnel Committee has not met since the last report. It's meeting, is it meeting this Friday, Sean? Yeah, I should know, since I'm supposed to be there. But I don't. Yeah. Oh, approval of minutes, I'm sorry. Did I miss that? Okay, whoops. Okay, approval of minutes. We need a motion. Mrs. Gray, Mrs. Wooldridge. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, good, roll call, please.
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Ms. Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I skipped a whole section. So I skipped finance. So, finance committee, there are 2 items. Would someone like to make a motion? Mrs. White and Mrs. Richmond.
Finance is meeting on the 20th, and these are bills and professional development.
Any questions about these 2 items? Please do a roll call, please.
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Ms. Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray? Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so personnel committee is meeting this Friday. Policy committee, that's next.
Today, this morning, so I'll do that.
Okay, so we'll have that report at our next meeting. Curriculum. Is this working? Take it out. The curriculum committee met on February 1st. The first topic was new course approvals. You guys hear out there?
No.
Is this better?
Yes.
The curriculum committee met on February 1st. The first item on the agenda was new course approvals. To meet state mandated requirements, 3 courses in dance and theater will be introduced at William Annan for the 2019-20 school year. The first course is Introduction to Theater. It's an 8th grade course. The second course is 7th grade dance cycle. And the third course is 8th grade dance elective. The introduction to these courses will require the addition of new staff. Mr. Facklin noted that teachers in this curricular area will be in high demand due to state requirements and may be challenging to fill those openings. Accelerated Math 7 will be introduced at William Annan also for the 2019-2020 school year. This course will provide further differentiation for 7th grade math students. It will take the place of the former Math 7 course and will cover all of the 7th and 8th grade math student learning standards. Beginning in 2019-20 Math 7, the new Math 7 will cover only 7th grade math content standards. The final course being added is Game Design and Development, and it will be added at Ridge High School to allow students to continue to pursue the interest in this area beyond the middle school. This course will require some additional devices and chargers and software, etc., and a new card, but the additional equipment will be used for other courses at Ridge High School as well. The next agenda item was the Elementary Enrichment Gifted and Talented Review Committee findings. Ms. Fox reported to the committee on the proposal that was arrived at by the group. The new proposed program will be called QUEST. Question, Understand, Explore, Seek, and Think. The intent of this program is to expand enrichment programming to a wider range of students across a broader range of disciplines using a three-tiered approach. The first one is interest-based enrichment experience for all students. The second is teacher-recommended opportunities, and the third is enrichment for identified students. In summary, the recommendations are as follows. Implement the school-wide enrichment model and continue to provide a continuum of services for students at various levels of giftedness. Eliminate grade 3 telescoping mathematics. Revise the identification process for grades K through 5. Program development for summer 2019 would include grade 3 advanced mathematics. Begin to develop a tiered program set of options. Design scheduling options to fit within the buildings. Develop quality pre-assessments and develop a parent-teacher-student contract. Reevaluating grades 4 and 5 telescoping math would take place in the summer of 2020. And the grades 6 through 12 mathematics program evaluation for summer of 2019 and 20 would consider implications to the math program due to any of these changes that are introduced at the elementary level. There are some additional details to note. The new identification process would require a budget increase, and this would allow for students, teachers, and parents and test scores to nominate a student for this programming. All students in K to 5 will be evaluated annually. Kindergarten to second grade will be evaluated in the spring and 3 through 5 in the fall. For school year 2019-20 and 2021, the current 3rd and 4th grade students presently in the telescoping math program will continue on the path to the existing accelerated math 6. Because students will be evaluated annually, there will be movement in and out of the identified groups. And lastly, the schedules will be developed this summer to include programming in the fall for all levels. There was a brief report on the next topic, teacher recommendation process. Ms. Fox advised the group that the deadline for high school teachers to submit their course recommendations was February 5th. At William Annan, the deadline is February 20th. She reminded us that teacher recommendations are not binding. They are for use as a tool to assist students and families in the scheduling decision-making process. If a student receives a recommendation from a teacher, the recommendation will be found in the teacher notes field within the requests in aspect. That was noted in Mr. Markarian's SOS as well. And then the last item was about the high school health. I'm sorry, just want to make sure I'm not missing a page. About the high school health and wellness discussion. Ms. Fox shared with the group the following possible solutions for consideration. Add 1 marking period of health to grade 10 only. Review or fine-tune the current health curriculum to address outdated materials. Include other opportunities for character education and SEL programming. And where possible, infuse the topics into all content areas. It's important to note that none of these are mutually exclusive and that a multifaceted approach is likely the best. The committee agrees that a careful review of the existing programming materials is the first priority. However, it was made clear by Mr. Scheller that the curriculum content standards themselves are current. It is the materials, handouts, videos, instructional materials, etc., that would be up for review. During the process to identify the need for additional time for wellness programming, one additional consideration was to deliver the additional instruction by interspersed programming, perhaps during a health, PE, or option 2 study hall pullout, possibly monthly or bi-monthly on perhaps a Friday. And while this does create scheduling complexities, Mr. Scheller advised that he would have the health PE staff go back and take another look at this possibility. Public comments about possible lost or unused time in driver education were also discussed. Committee members inquired as to whether there might be an opportunity to optimize and use any leftover minutes to possibly create additional time for wellness programming. It was made clear that the administration and staff are supportive of ensuring that the important topic of driver education is not shortchanged. And it's worth noting that the driver education classes are commonly missed by a number of students on any given day who have been pulled out for a science lab. So it really is necessary for teachers to ensure that all students receive all content. Board members reiterated their support for additional professional development for staff members to further explore opportunities for infusion into all the classes. Health teachers and peer leaders would like to create a program that will allow efforts that begin with the freshman project adventure to continue throughout the school year on a rotational basis, so that there isn't a huge gap between the first and fourth marking period for freshmen and create some continuity. All committee members expressed strong support for having the final plan address parent concerns to minimize the loss of movement for students who really need the physical release of PE and do not desire a study hall. Issues surrounding extracurricular advisors and athletics were also discussed. There is difficulty for students and families when advisors run their activities well over scheduled time, leaving parents sitting in parking lots waiting, not knowing when their child will be released. The allowed use of time by students while captive for long periods when there is downtime to not be permitted to do homework or to be required to watch another group while they are competing. All of these topics were discussed at the committee, and Mr. Shello intends to take them back to his coaches for a discussion there. The half-year study hall question was also discussed. This possibility has long existed at Rich High School. It was made clear that in order for it to be guaranteed, the study hall would have to be the first priority indicated by the student when selecting electives. So if you want a half-year study hall, it has to be your number one elective choice, and that would mean that if you had an elective, say game design, that you really wanted, if you put that first, and the only way for you to get that in your schedule, it would negate your request for a study hall as your first priority, and that would potentially move into that other semester. In summary, Mr. Markarian reminded the group that this proposal was initiated with the need for more time to deliver essential content to students. The desired total additional time is equivalent to about 60 or 70 days when accounting for lab pullouts. That need has not changed. The question is how and when to deliver the content. The committee agreed that junior year will be avoided. Mr. Markarian called on the administration and teachers to carefully reconsider possibilities with the previously stated in mind. The final determination will be communicated in advance of the April 5th scheduling deadline for Rich High School students. There were 5 topics that were not even touched on because of the length of time it took for this discussion to take place. So we really dedicated a lot of time to it. The next meeting is scheduled for March 1st.
My question is about the testing for the kids, every year testing. And how long, how long is that? Like how much time?
Okay, so I want to just say that the presentation that was scheduled for this evening is rescheduled until the 25th, is that right? So I think we're going to get into more detail there.
Sorry, I just curious.
Mike?
You know that I would like to have a couple hours on this because I don't understand it as it sits. And we don't have a couple hours tonight, so.
Thank you.
I just wanted to reiterate my apologies and Ms. Fox's apologies. She couldn't be here tonight. I know she really wanted to present on the original gifted and talented recommendation, so I apologize that that is being delayed until the end of the month, but she really couldn't be here. So my apologies for that.
Okay, so there's one item under curriculum that needs to be approved. Would you like to make a motion? Okay, Mrs. Gray and Mrs. Woodridge. That's for the new courses that I just outlined. Do you have a roll call, please?
Byrne,
Let me try to
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Salmon,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Tricia,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Bolton,
Yes.
Byrne,
The first three are mandated by the state. Is that right? I'm going to say yes on those. Accelerated math, I'm going to say yes. The Ridge High School game design, I'm going to say no.
Yes. Thank you. Go up to the advocacy committee. Looking the wrong way.
All right, everybody here, yeah. Okay, advocacy met on February 4th, and we started our meeting by going to Liberty Corner Elementary School, and we met with the student council as well as the kids for character that are referred to as the KFC kids. And the students gave a presentation about all the different character building activities that they do, as well as the different fundraisers that they're involved in. And they shared what they like about Liberty Corner, as well as offered suggestions for areas that they thought needed improvement. And the kids were just incredibly well-spoken, and they were so prepared. And not only did they ask questions, but they were able to answer any questions that we had for them. And we'll be visiting Mount Prospect School in March before our next advocacy meeting. Then we came back to the board ed office, and we had the next part of our meeting. And we just started by introducing the new members, since we've had some reorganization to let all the PTO presidents know who everybody was. Then we went through a list of what the different meetings are district-wide for the remainder of the school year, and shared with them that if you go to the Bernard's Bow homepage, there actually is a tab for all of the presentations and the different events throughout the year that you can access, so you can always know when there is going to be something. And I think it even went home, the instructions for using the Dynacal. There is actually a way to sync Dynacal up with your own, whether you use a Google Calendar, whatever kind of calendar, that you can do that. And you can also select by the school that you're interested in having all the information from. We gave an update of what transpired at the last Board of Ed meeting. And then Mr. Markarian gave an update, and he talked about the fact that Ms. Fox and some other students are going to visit 4 schools, and they visited 2 at the time of our meeting. They had been to Montgomery, and I believe they had been to Chatham. And they're going to be visiting 2 schools that are block schedule, so that would means they have an A-B schedule. They go to 4 classes on the A day, 4 classes on the B day. So they still take 8 courses, but they meet 4 one day, 4 another day. And they're also going to be visiting 2 schools that are rotating drop, which is when there are 8 courses, but you only sit in 6 each day. Then he gave an update on Park, which as of now, there is no new information, and we've just been advised to just carry on. And the state is appealing the court decision with regards to the graduation requirement. And as soon as there is more information on that, that will be shared. Then there was a question about class size, and what class size will be for next year. And typically that's presented in addition to the budget report in March. But Mr. Markarian explained that class size is determined with the need to manage classes, so they're neither too large or too small, and that something, class size is kept in mind for all grade levels K through 12. He also shared that since the demographers report last year, there is more information available about what's going to be built in Dewey Meadow in terms of the number of units and the number of bedrooms that the different units will have. And so the demographer needs to update his projections, keeping that information in mind. And that hopefully by the end of the school year, sometime this spring, we will have those updated numbers. A question was asked about if class size does include special needs students, and the answer is yes. All cohorts, regardless of special education, are included in that number. There was a question about platooning that came from Oak Street parents in terms of prep time for teachers and how that works. And platooning is going to be evaluated, and it's different schools are going to be coming up with one uniform way of doing it. So what we also have to mind is, for instance, if there's a teacher who is in charge of teaching writing, that teacher may have a greater need to have longer prep time because of the correcting of all of those writing examples. And then we actually are going to have somebody come, a guest speaker, to our next, Dan Regan, to our next advocacy meeting, who's going to be going over how the different PTO boards are covered by insurance and any questions that they might have in relation to when you're running events. And then lastly, we just reviewed the protocol of when a gift is made to the schools and how you go about that, and the fact that you bring your information first to your principal, and once the principal has approved that this is something he or she wants, the next step would be to bring it to Mr. Markarian so that a resolution can be made. And then our next meeting, I want to say it's March 6th. Any questions?
Yeah, but I think so. Is it working? SEL met on January 24th. The focus of the meeting was heavily on counseling and group counseling. There was and how it addresses the self, which is collaborative for academic, social, and emotional learning. Ms. Richecki, a sixth grade counselor, came to talk to us a little bit about how they do some small group committee work at 6th to 8th grade at Wayman. Currently, the counseling department is holding small stress busters groups. She's currently working with 6th grade group of girls, and there will be a follow-up of 6th grade boys after that. The students were surveyed during the study halls indicating how often they feel stressed, and at the end of the survey, they were asked if they would be interested in participating in this group. It was non-binding, but just to get a sense of how many kids would be interested in participating in the small groups, and there was enough interest for two girl groups and one boy group. So each group meets for about 6 sessions during Fridays during lunch periods. In order to participate, the parents have to sign a permission slip to allow their student to go down to participate in these groups. They participate in different de-stressing activities, sometimes coloring, reading activities, journaling, sometimes just learning a lesson about like cognitive distortions and how different people view different types of stress and what you can do in a situation. They listen to calming spa type music and talk about things that they can do to relax, which she gives some examples of reading, yoga, mindfulness, muscle relaxation exercises. We talked about how the students were chosen to participate in these groups. Sometimes it was a student who self-identified themselves through the survey. Sometimes it was parent request. Sometimes a teacher may suggest a student may be interested in, and then they pursue that and see if the kids actually want to participate. There's approximately 40 to 50 students participating in these small groups now. K to 8, there are a bunch of different small groups throughout the different grades. Some of the examples are the stress busters, the self-esteem supporters, booster buddies, divorced parents group was a banana splits group. They try to do different small groups with the new district students to try to make them feel more welcome and make the big school smaller for them. And so as the needs arise, different groups are formed. The stress that all the students experience across the grades, they're just dealing with different stress at different levels as they grow.
counselors are working on newsletters as a resource for sharing information throughout the year. The counselors feel like they're getting to know a lot more students, and the students have expressed how much they really love these small group sessions, and they're always disappointed when it's time for the sessions to end. So Mr. Checkley said that they're even looking into possibly carrying on throughout the year, maybe on like once a month basis rather than a weekly basis for some of these kids. At Ridge, the counseling program is in an area of growth. There are just some different needs. We talked about the progress for aligning the K-12 program with the ASCA national model and RAMP designation. ASCA is the American School Counseling Association, which is considered the gold standard for counseling, which Ms. Smith is very familiar with from her past work in Virginia. They're working towards RAMP designation, which is a recognized ASCA model program, and it's the highest level of designation, where the department is using data-driven competencies. So the counselors are filling out some information for them and doing some group work, and they're having really involved in good discussions amongst themselves and working on how to collectively be good as a group. There's a lot of individuals who are really good at counseling, and so she's just trying to make it more cohesive as a group, do more like team building kind of things like that. Wayne Manning, they've gone through this process at Ridge. They're working on this now. And at the elementary level, the process is just beginning. They're just starting to do the questions right now. We talked about the counseling department is doing a distress versus eustress parent academy. They've published their flyer to talk about healthy stress and how parents can support their children to manage stressors. This program is going to be at Wayman on February 27th at 7 p.m. She just mentioned also that academic planning night, but the message has changed over the years and is worth hearing, especially if you have older students who haven't attended one of them in a while. The message is much more about your child's health and well-being. So for those parents who have older students, it's worthwhile to come in and see what we're talking about now. Report to the board on the January 30th in-service day for staff, which was just last week. Ms. Richetti explained that at William Manning, they were doing sessions that would be peer-led, run by teachers. They had different stations at each of the groups of teachers in the grade group. Some examples were yoga, making stress balls, possibly having therapy dogs. These were all ideas that came out of the November 7th in-service day, what the teachers thought would be helpful for their well-being and stress management. At Ridge, they were doing a recharge for batteries in the general opening session over 12. For the general opening session and over 12 breakout sessions for staff over wellness and SNL. They were having a wellness fair where they were bringing good team members from their communities. I'm sure we'll get more about this after. Mr. Ralph talked about expansion of the freshman orientation program and related SEL activities. So the freshman teachers, assistant principal, Ms. Smith, Mr. Krause, we've all been discussing meaningful ways to expand the freshman orientation. They'd like it to be more cohesive, instead of having like half the student body come on the morning and half come in the afternoon. They want everybody there all at once, and to build the whole freshman student body, they need to have them think of themselves as one group. And they're talking about making it more fun, sharing basic information, but making it more fun, having checkpoints, rotational blocks of activities, hoping that counselors, teachers, and administrators will all participate. And they're also looking for peer leaders participate in helping with the freshmen and becoming more involved with them right from the start. The high school staffs are working with the CASEL thing and have endorsed, CASEL has endorsed certain programs for classroom instruction in small groups, so they're evaluating what at Ridge would work for them And the staff is also looking at programs at West Windsor, Plainsboro, Ridgewood, Princeton, Chatham, Milburn, and Montgomery to see if there's anything there that they can look at and improve. And our next meeting is February 20th.
I'd like to see a breakdown of all of the different areas that are causing stress and what we're trying to do to correct it. I think, and it might vary by school. I'd like to know what the stressors are. And I think we had a 30-year-old in town die this weekend, or at the end of last week, who went to Ridge, and I think the sister already has died, so I think there's two in there. I don't know the details on it, but I'd like to know a lot more about what's causing the stress. And what do we think will fix it? I don't know the details.
Well, I know we have had some stressor presentations, and we have some presentation too. So the municipal alliance came to give us a presentation on from their health survey and stress survey, and then we also had the counseling department give us a very detailed look at what the students, how the students are feeling stressful. So, I mean, I don't know how much more detail we can get with that.
I haven't seen those.
They were given during the Board of Ed presentation.
I'd like to have those and some discussion about it, so we have a better understanding of what we're doing. I don't think from this I understood what the stressors are. And little groups, I don't think is necessarily the. I want to know what the conclusions and recommendations are, and what the process of trying to fix them are. I want to see the details.
Well, we can get another copy of the student stressor survey, I think, to see what students are reporting is causing the stress.
You're talking about the one that we had a couple weeks ago?
No. Julian Sheen was here the last one, and Mrs. Smith and Ms. Thomas gave one.
To the whole board?
Yeah.
Well, I thought we had a copy of that.
Yeah.
But
And I don't think we can get into like small group details, there's some privacy issues with the students.
See, I'm not sure, I want to see, and I think the public wants to see, I want to see some of the detail. What are we dealing with? How are we going to try and fix it? I haven't heard those types of discussions.
That people are studying.
Well, right now, it's being handled by the committee in little groups that we don't know anything about. Well, I certainly don't know about it.
It's a full district initiative to try to work on this issue.
Yeah, but it's not
Everybody's
being done
talking
in
about it.
public, so we can all talk about it. And I'm having a problem with that. If the board gets, well, we're working on it, that's the presentation. I don't think that's acceptable. I want to know more about the detail.
Well, we're going to have, if we have time, our board forum tonight, we'll be talking about it. So we'll have lots of opportunities for conversation tonight.
Fine, that's probably true.
Okay.
But my comment was on the presentation.
Okay.
I didn't see any detail.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we're up to liaison committee reports. Linda?
Yes, so I wanted to report on the February 5th Municipal Alliance meeting. So about 250 people attended the Eggs documentary screening on January 24th, which was a really good turnout. The audience was very engaged, and the Blueprint mental health staff did a good job at the Q&A afterwards. 28 people, including some women and teachers, attended the Youth Mental Health First Aid Training on January 17th. And the next class will be held on May 16th. And then Caitlin Cartocho reported that the Pride Plus survey will be administered in early March to students in grades 6, 8, 10, and 12 at William Manning and Ridge. And I believe this is replacing the American Drug and Alcohol Survey. The survey has questions about drug and alcohol use and also some SEL issues. There are some new questions about vaping and opioids and cell phone use. And the survey will be done electronically using phone books. The RAD students are working on posters and videos about vaping, and they're also presenting a program on vaping on April 24th at the town hall. And the William Ann and peer educators started the drug and alcohol unit. They are going into the 6th grade morning meetings and presentations. So does anyone have any questions?
I think I have the same comment. I'd like to see the Municipal Alliance come and tell us what they're finding and what they're recommending.
They are.
Wait a minute, and then recommend or tell us about what they're recommending to fix the problem. Because
Yeah, they are definitely going to, one of the things that Mrs. Cartocho said was that with this Pride Plus survey, they're going to be getting the results more quickly. So she's hopeful that in sometime in the spring, they'll actually get the results to the board.
I don't know of one program that the Municipal Alliance has been working on to try and fix the
Well,
problem.
I will say, Mr. Vernon, those are public meetings. You're welcome to attend meetings. We talk
But
about a lot of
but
stuff.
you would think that they would come to the board.
Well, they do.
Like, I just literally looked up when they were here, and the student stressors and asset survey was given to the board on October 29th of 2018.
Right.
And Ms. Fox and Ms. Smith gave us the school counseling department and social emotional learning one on November 12th. So those were long presentations.
What are the corrective actions? What are the corrective actions that they're proposing? Can anybody outline those for me?
I think that falls into what the district's trying to do, putting in more wellness and student.
Well, I don't think wellness explains what the issue and how we're going to fix it. I think those are the type of thing that we're hearing more and more of, but no concrete information and no corrective action that's working.
Caitlin gave a very detailed presentation, representing the health department, RAD, the kids, what they do. You got to do your homework.
Well, can you
So,
summarize it for me? Just
it
simple,
not off the
usable
top of my
terms?
head, but part of our job is to be prepared. So all of that information is available to you. So if you don't know it, those presentations are there. You can go back and you can look and you can get those answers. But to
Yeah,
say,
but I'm asking, just give me a couple simple things that they're talking about.
simple about these issues. That's the problem.
Well, guess what? There's no detail here either.
I'd like to say something. I'd like to say that I'm glad they're focusing on vaping, because I think vaping is a real problem. And I mean, I have teenagers and I have a problem, and I talk to them all the time, and I'm still having it.
We have student representatives at the Municipal Alliance meeting, and I asked them, you know, I know there was like a huge problem, like, I guess last year, and they had closed bathrooms and stuff, and I said, are things different at Ridge? And she felt like, no, not yet.
I mean, when
That
you talk to
just
the
a lot of
kids,
students are still
when you
vaping.
talk to the kids,
Yeah,
I mean, when you say epidemic, that's probably a really good term for it.
and it's been in the national news.
National, everywhere.
And there's
it's
vaping
FDA
presentations like
tracking
all over.
But it's not something that, it's not a simple fix, and no matter how much you tell, they're really not, like with cigarettes, it's like, they hate them, disgusted, with this vaping, it's very hard to get through them, that's dangerous. And I don't know who else are talking to, or maybe it's fun, I don't know. I mean, I don't feel glad that, it's just something I feel like, it's kind of under the radar, like, we're not, the emphasis, we have to emphasize how dangerous it is, and that it's more sneaky than it is outright bad for you.
The Municipal Alliance also did like a table, an information table, and about vaping.
I mean, it takes years and years to get cigarettes to over five, so I'm not saying that overnight, there's no overnight answer, because kids will be kids. But the problem.
I think they're still learning how dangerous vaping is,
Right.
all that information is still coming in, and no one really knew. I mean, we definitely were marketing toward kids and making it way too easy to sneak. I mean, it looks just like a pen or a USB, you know, it's very easy to have.
Does anyone else have questions?
I think that was a good example. And I think to try and prevent it is a great thing. So I want a lot more detail on all the other areas. Because vaping, I'm sure, is terrible for us.
Thank you. Okay, we are up to public comment on non-agenda items. my mic better at work.
It can be worked.
Yeah, it's the loudest one, I don't know why. Yeah, so I wanted to say something before public comment, and I know Mr. McCarran has a few facts and information he wanted to kind of put out there before people come up, because we've been getting emails about several topics and to kind of clarify a few things. But before he does that, I just wanted to kind of make a plea to everyone. A lot of us know you guys that are sitting out there looking around, and I know who's up on the stage here and who knows a lot of people out there. We're talking about all this stress, and obviously it's obvious to everyone that there's a lot of stress for students and parents in our town, probably not just in our town, but probably across the country. But it was the overwhelming theme at the strategic planning sessions. It keeps coming up at every board meeting, you know, despite the fact that Mr. Byrne is frustrated that we don't have easy solutions. I think all of us know there aren't any easy answers, you know, to fix any of this, otherwise we'd all be doing it. But I just wanted to make a plea to think about, you know, we're the adults here and modeling the attitudes and behavior that we want to teach our children. I mean, we've gotten some pretty harsh emails and some pretty harsh comments, and I've been on the board for 10 years, and I've really never seen this type of, I don't know what to call it, angst? Well, vitriol would be another word for some of what we've received, but I think it's really upsetting to all of us up here because we're doing this because we care about the kids. I mean, we don't volunteer all these hundreds of hours just for our own fun. And so we know that the people that work in our district went into education because they care about kids, and it really is upsetting to have some of the things, you know, said, you know, implying that like we don't care about children or we have some other ulterior motive for our decision making or something. I mean, our code of ethics says that we have to make decisions based on the best interest of the students, and I think we all try very hard to do that. And maybe we don't always make 100%, you know, the perfect decision at every given time, but I think we try to listen to people in the community and take feedback. And what's frustrating is we try to teach kids about digital citizenship. A lot of people are just, you know, going online and providing feedback in that way. We can't really get into responding on Facebook as board members because we really can only speak for our own personal self. We can't speak for the board. So it's a dangerous slippery slope, as our board attorney would tell us. We can't really start responding to comments or trying to clarify information very easily on Facebook. And it's disappointing, I guess, because a lot of us were used to people picking up the phone and calling us when they had questions and to get information. It seems like less and less of that happens now, and so we're frustrated. So I just wanted to say that before you guys come up. And I know we've gotten a lot of emails. Mr. Mercarian's going to just make a couple of statements about the Ridge track, because we got some emails about that today before public comment, because it might help clarify a few things.
Okay, so yes, just to piggyback a little bit on that commentary, Mrs. McEwen, the issue of the emails, of course, a lot of emails have been sent, which is not that unusual when there's a topic of interest that comes up. So I apologize. Sometimes volume is overwhelming, honestly. You know, not to sound like I can't keep up, but honestly, there are days where I can't keep up with the volume of email. There is an auto response that does go out every time somebody sends an email to the Board of Ed. And the sentiment of that email is thank you for your information, for your input. We can't always respond to all emails. It's just not possible. When there seems to be a pattern of concern or question about a particular topic, what I try to do is send out some type of communication. Typically at the end of the week, you've seen letters or SOS Express messages to try to be responsive to some of the items that seem to be the topic of the day, if you will. So I will continue to try to do that. I'm certainly not trying to snub anyone. If I don't respond to an email, I'll try to capture a main theme with a message, at least on a weekly basis. So please don't think that your emails don't matter. They do. I would say to you that if you send me an email that's a personal issue going on with a child, and I don't get back to you, please call my office, because frankly, I've lost some emails this year, and it's never really been an issue up until the last 18 months or so, but I can tell you that I'm at the point where I need to put an auto reply out there that just says, look, if you've got a student issue that you really need to talk to me about, pick up the phone, because I just can't keep up with all the email. I'm just being honest. I wish I could. I wish I had the time, but frankly, I just don't. And you know, when we get the same message over and over, the best I can do is to try to respond publicly, to try to send out a message that would be helpful to large numbers of people that might be interested in a particular topic. So that certainly was the case relative to some of the feedback sent recently about the desire to add some time for instruction. I understand that there's a lot of differing opinion about whether or not that's a good idea with respect to our students. I couldn't agree more with the sentiment that we are really here, the staff and the board, we're trying to do what's in the best interest of the kids. And I know that a lot of people are also trying to do what they think is in the best interest of the kids. So sometimes we don't agree 100% of the time. I think that folks that have written a lot or spoken a lot at the last board meeting about this issue, I tried to be responsive with a couple of letters after the last board meeting. I tried to help people understand that you are heard and that we are listening and that you're concerned about the amount of time that students might lose from either a study hall or perhaps time in the gymnasium, if that would be something that would be considered a negative impact for you or your child. And so when we met in curriculum committee, as Ms. Gray was pointing out, we talked about, hearing that and saying, look, we understand that you don't think that we should add additional time. Some people don't think we should add additional time. Although I will say we have some emails that were positive. So we said, look, we won't add additional time in the 11th grade, and we will do everything essentially that people asked us to do at the last board meeting. I agreed with what Mr. Scheller said when I looked at the curriculum and I looked at the standards. It does appear as though the standards are up to date. Might there be some activities that need help? Unquestionably. I think we saw at least one clear example of that. And we are committed to making those corrections. The other thing that we talked about, obviously, was the issue of how we could find time to accomplish more, and why do we want to try to find time to accomplish more. And I think that I'm not sure if the reaction was just surprise, but I just want to kind of reiterate where it's coming from. It's interesting, I was at a meeting last week on Friday, and somebody was speaking, I won't provide the actual name, but they serve in a leadership capacity for Somerset County in the Department of Human Services. And they were speaking to this issue that you raised today, Mr. Byrne, which is, what is going on? And I think a lot of us recognize that we don't like what we see going on. But to pinpoint exactly what it is and what's causing it, as Ms. Schaefer pointed out, is complicated, and people are trying to figure it out. We don't have all the answers about what's going on or what's causing a lot of the issues that we're identifying in students, and therefore coming up with the exact proper cure, if you will. It's just too complicated for that. But we do know that there are some things that we can certainly try to do to try to be responsive to what we see. And I think that as a staff and as a board, that's what we're trying to do. And it's difficult to do that without trying to carve out some time. And one of the things that we're looking at trying to do is really twofold. And I tried to say this at the last meeting. We're not looking for necessarily a magical one-shot lesson. I mean, I understand that that's not what we're really thinking is going to be the solution, but it's an effort over time to shift culture, to put more emphasis on areas about character education. I think that was a little bit missed at the last meeting. We recognize that in particular at high school, we want to spend more time doing that. We want to dedicate some time to it. But also we want to work on the culture of the building as a whole in all of the classrooms. And it's a big undertaking and it's going to take some time, but we really feel like a combination of efforts that include committees working together in the school and working as a team, not only in direct instruction, which is what we were talking about largely at the last meeting, where can we find some time to create some direct instruction lessons, but also opportunities for more indirect activities and or assemblies and things of that nature. So it's an effort that I think is going to take time. We're going to have growing pains. Some things might work well, other things might not. It's very difficult to measure this sort of thing, but it's not without input. We've had a lot of input in the form of surveys, climate surveys to both staff and students. We've had our strategic planning meetings where we've collected feedback. Obviously, we have Board of Education meetings where we've done presentations on trends in mental health, social and emotional learning efforts that are going on in the district, and then taking people's feedback. So we really are happy to have that feedback. Certainly, we are more than open to hearing what people have to say and trying to be responsive to it. And that's something that I tried to make an effort to do in my last couple of communications. You know, we talked about the efforts of the Burns Township Health Department. They don't have all the answers any more than we have all the answers, but they did come in the fall. They're working very hard on their behalf. I think we have a nice partnership with them. They did a survey on mental health and stressors for students, presented that survey here, and as was just reported, they're planning on running a newer version of the survey that has been tested more recently and is becoming kind of the standard in the Pride survey that they're going to do this year. So we're going to have survey data 2 years in a row. So I think everyone's got their heart in the right place, and I appreciate that. We're not necessarily always going to agree on every way that we work towards the betterment of our kids, but we're just going to keep plugging away. I don't know what else to say. I can't sit back and look at all the information that we have and feel as though doing nothing is the right response. I appreciate that people have a call out for us to look at lessons, look at time, and we are going to do that. I wrote in my last letter that I felt as though what the staff were looking for was probably roughly the equivalent of an extra marking period. You're talking about 45 days in a marking period. With pullouts, as we discussed at the last board meeting, we might have maybe 35 lessons that come out of that. If we had done that in 2 grades, that would be a total of maybe 70 lessons over the course of a child's experience at Ridge High School, where we could try to focus more on character education, wellness strategies, self-regulation, things of that nature. So immediately we heard you and said, okay, look, let's see if we could work with no more than half that. Because 1 marking period for 10th grade was kind of a fallback at the objection to the amount of time, which I understand, and people were heard. In 10th grade, they don't have any health classes at all. They have driver's ed. So it seems like certainly a reasonable compromise. Even with that said, as I wrote in my letter, most recently on this subject, I said that we wouldn't do more than that at most. Maybe we can come up with some ways, as Ms. Gray was alluding to, where we take even less time. I'm not sure. We're going to be meeting about it actually this week on Wednesday. And as Ms. Gray pointed out, we certainly will be communicating more with the public on the subject and definitely sharing more information well before the time the students need to finish up their schedule. So I don't know, it's a little bit of a long-winded way of talking too much about the summary that you were looking for, but that's with regard to the commentary and the emails related to the health program at the high school. The other issue that seems to have come up with some frequency in the last week or so is related to the tarp that was used on the Ridge High School track in an effort to have a way of clearing snow without shoveling the track. And we continue to get some emails with essentially a request to revisit this issue that was debated quite a bit last year. And I just wanted to clear up a couple things with regard to what has happened to date. So we did purchase a tarp to use to protect the track for the purpose of snow removal. A lightweight tractor with a snow blower attachment was purchased to use on the track surface after the tarp was put down. And we put together some protocols for when that would happen, ultimately at the discretion of the athletic director in terms of when a tarp would actually go down, depending on weather, but also factoring in the needs of the students if they were preparing for some particular large events and putting the tarp down in a particular afternoon in anticipation of snow. The timing isn't good. Obviously, it's never good when you have to take away facilities, but the idea is to, in the long run, come out ahead depending on what the storm conditions might be. Obviously, playing seer with Mother Nature is a somewhat losing proposition, but we're doing the best we can. We're trying things and trying to be responsive to folks' requests to deal with issues. And there was a major request to try to come up with a way to deal with the snow on the track. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be responsive to that particular issue. So this year, we put together the protocol. We purchased all the equipment. The grounds crew practiced putting out the tarp once. They put it down and took it up on the same day with no interruption in practice, just to try to put it down. And most recently, they actually did put down the tarp in anticipation of snow on a Friday. I believe it was on January 18th. And we were expected to get something like 6 inches of snow over the weekend. So we thought that it might represent a good time to give it a try. We were thinking that we needed really at least 3 inches of snow to consider making it worth it to give it a shot. And it seemed like we might get that type of precipitation. Mother Nature, being the way she is, we didn't really get 6 inches of blowable snow. We got a couple of inches of slushy, mushy ice. So we didn't even really get the chance to try it. And by Monday, despite the conditions, if I remember correctly, that was MLK, it was bitterly cold and the wind was blowing. The guys still managed to get the tarp off the track to try to make it accessible again to students, and that was on Monday afternoon. So, we're still in a holding pattern. I know that the question came up again for the forecast for tomorrow, and Mr. Shello decided that given the prediction as well as the needs of the students in preparation for some competitions, it would be better not to deploy the tarp, so it was not put out this afternoon in anticipation of the weather overnight and into tomorrow. And that's all I've got. Sorry for being so long-winded.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to open up public comment. Can you make sure you tell us your name and address, and then